Turtle! Oh my goodness!
Right on to Nilton. He chips it.
Fabian with a shot. Upper corner, top shelf.
Oh, what a goal!
Alex Reagan. He's out to
Oh yeah, we're back. We are back, and it's Alex, it's Phil, it is our special guest, Mr. Joseph Reina, who of course writes Around the League with Joseph Reina. What's going on, everybody out there on CBS Sports Golazo and MASL TV on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. As we, boys, first of all, welcome. A little bit to talk about today, just a little bit. The playoffs.
Marginal, slightly. I'm so glad Joseph got to go to San Diego. We see the palm trees behind him. We see his face sun-kissed, it's perfect lighting as you and I.
We're not jealous at all.
Nope, not one
bit.
No
jealousy whatsoever.
Just
rainy day up here. How's the weather in Utica, Phil?
Well, it's not good. It's never good.
It's not San Diego, is it?
Not San Diego. No.
Not San Diego. Joseph, how's San Diego, buddy? Please tell us.
It's sunny, bright. It's been beautiful.
Get him out of here.
Yeah, sorry about that,
why
guys.
are we bringing him on right now?
Get him out of here.
It's so of course Joseph is in San Diego, folks, for the MASL playoff weekend that happened, where the quarterfinal games and the semifinal games went down. We're going to recap all the stuff that happened because obviously there was tons of excitement. We know who's going to be playing for the Ron Newman Cup, the Ronnies, the Newmies, Phil. What are you calling it?
They're still
again?
the Newmies to me. Joseph,
still the Newmies to you.
Hot debate last week if it's the Newmies, it's the Ronnies. Where do you stand on what is obviously the most controversial topic in the league?
Clearly,
I'm okay with either. I really don't have a preference. As long as it's not, I cannot stand it when people say the RNC. Way too much confusion there. That's it. That's the only.
I haven't
heard
that one. Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah. A lot of people talking about where the RNC is going to be held this year. So
yeah, let's not get into an elephant versus donkey type thing here, right? So yeah, for sure. But let's get to it, guys. So okay, the semifinal. Let's do the first one that went down between Chihuahua and Milwaukee. This is the opening kickoff, supplied by Capelli Sports. Capelli, the official supplier of the Major Arena Soccer League. Guys, this was maybe, I would say, the best game that we had on the weekend. Absolutely insane. Like, what an advertisement for indoor soccer it was. Savage take them down 7-6 in overtime. Heartbreaking result for the Wave. Well, I thought, guys, for long stretches of this game, controlled the play, especially in the fourth quarter. They, an argument could be made that they deserve to win this game. I know who the fans in the stands wanted to win this game. A lot of soccer fans that were rolling in. I think they wanted to see an upset here. Couldn't quite make it happen. Whoever wants to take it first, guys, talk about what went down.
And I sent Joseph a text too. They did control most of the play except for one moment of it, that third quarter where they went extra defensive. And I texted Joseph. I said, Joseph, that's way too much defense for me right now from the Wave. Reminded me of that overtime loss in Panther Arena as well. But more, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? It was a valiant effort from the Wave. Less than 24 hours of rest between the Comets game and this game. I was really like, man, are their legs going to hold up? And they held up. They had a great performance. Chihuahua was sloppy at times, too many shots, right? Too many shots off target. And I know Joseph will talk to that in a little bit, but a great performance. The stars showed up on both sides, which I think it has.
Ian Bennett was so good, guys.
Phenomenal weekend from Ian Bennett.
Yeah.
Frank showed up with that headed goal. Rios with his 6-5 goal. So up there with, games of the year type stuff. We always sort of rank those number 1 or 2 for me, whoever wants to go there, but great game. It was just unfortunate. If you're a Milwaukee fan, the way that went down with the controversy at the end of it with the reviews, which I know we'll get into in a little bit, but Joseph, what was your take?
So I'll start with, I thought that, Milwaukee started the game a little bit slow. They did just come off, like you were saying, that second game in 24 hours. And I did get a chance to ask Frank Tayo if he was rested, going into that game. and he gave me a great quote. He said, "I don't really have a choice. The second you hit the field, your body just does it." And so
love that.
that was really cool to talk to him and to get that little insight from the players. But no, I thought, especially at the beginning of the game, the first couple minutes of it, watching it back, like it was a little sloppy from both teams. I thought there were a lot of misplaced shots. There were a lot of poor clearances, defensive clearances that went out of bounds. And so I thought that both teams kind of warmed up to the game, but once they got to that level and once they got to a point where, okay, Milwaukee's got their game plan, they kind of warmed up into the style of play that they were adopting, which was a little bit more of a counterattack and then get possession, recycle, get some subs, and then hold possession in the Chihuahua. And they did a really good job of, making sure that the game didn't turn into a track meet the way it did against Kansas City.
So, Phil, let's show. Two controversial plays in the fourth quarter. The first one was a handball in the Chihuahua box. And of course, it was extra heartbreaking for Milwaukee the way it could have turned out because it was reviewed and it was said that it was while the ball looked like we thought it did hit his bicep. Of course, it was tucked into his body. It was ruled not an infraction. And then what was it? 30 seconds later, Chihuahua goes down. It scores what we thought could have been the winner. I think there was about 3.5 minutes left in the game, right? Then, as you mentioned, that wonderful header by Taiyu to once again tie up the game. And then a handball in the Milwaukee box that was clearly a handball, but Phil, channeling your Ryan Sigich, please explain why. Of course, this is not called as an infraction.
Joseph, this is my territory. I'm going to elbow you out here for a second. I thought it was great. I thought it was great production. Rich Grady jumps into the booth and says, no handball. And that's IFAB, laws of the game. This is not even MASL stuff.
No,
if
it's
the
just
ball
regular,
makes contact with a defender and it touches, that is not a handball. And the assumption is, of course, that you can't just sort of, kick it against your hand, things like that. So great. I want to say referees got both calls right.
They nailed it
on both of those. And it was great communication. Everyone knew in arena on the broadcast what was happening.
Yeah. Well done. And Joseph, you want to bring up, you've got a stat chart for us here. Explain what we're going to take a look at here.
Yeah, so this was something that I did for each of the games that we saw this weekend to kind of figure out where teams were coming from over the course of the season, how they had played up to this point, and to look at efficiency. So I've got goals per shot, for and against for each team. And then I highlighted the specific game that I wanted to look at. So in this one, we've got Chihuahua and Milwaukee. So we've got Milwaukee actually was way more efficient than Chihuahua. And I think that speaks to Phil's point before, where a lot of missed shots, a lot of, poor decision-making and like shooting from distance. Cause Milwaukee had a really good low block that they were holding into, and Chihuahua just didn't really have a choice oftentimes. And they were, letting rip from 35 feet. And so it was a interesting game to watch. And then when you look at the data, it was interesting to see. This was the one game over the course of the weekend where the team with the higher GPS did not win the game. And I think it spoke to the fact that, Savage weren't that efficient, but they just took so many shots. They were absolutely on Milwaukee. I think it was 29-16 was the final shot count. So, I mean, if you're doubling the other team's shots, it almost doesn't even matter how efficient you are. So,
again, though, we'll get into this in the next segment when we talk about San Diego and setting up the final. Guys, just, a different team away from Corner Sport Arena, though. This is why it was so important for San Diego to get that home field advantage. I don't want to get ahead of myself here because this is something that we're going to touch on in the next segment. Let's take a quick break then, guys. When we come back, we'll talk about the other semifinal game that went down in segment 2, and we'll set up the Ron Newman Cup final. More MASL Monday coming back in just a second. Welcome back to MASL Monday, everybody, on CBS Sports Golazo. It's Alex Bastiavansky, it's Phil Levanko, the Chrome Dome brothers, and Joseph Reina, who's rocking a flow that we both wish that we had, no question about it. Just
one point in my life I did.
Locks.
Back in my 20s, I had hair like that. I had a good head of lettuce.
Phil, next show,
Yeah.
We'll put up a picture, 2 pictures side by side of you and I with hair. Right?
I need
think
spousal
it has
approval
to.
because she's prominent in the picture and I'm sort of in the back with my
You have
flow.
one picture of you with hair. That's it. It's that rare.
I mean, that's a
We-
long
we
time ago, man.
Photoshop.
I don't have anything on my
Photoshop.
phone. All right, we'll see. We'll see what I can do.
Photoshop.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it's there
We'll see
for.
what I can
buddy.
do.
Listen, I will take care of it just to see the picture. I will Photoshop that for you,
Okay.
and we'll put it up. Anyway, yeah, great hair conversation here, guys. I started it, so I can't. Yeah,
I mean, it only goes to show you how the second game kind of really.
Yeah, which leads us into the second semifinal, folks. San Diego taking care of business on their home floor. 11-3 over the Blast. Listen, kudos to the Blast. Yeah, it wasn't much of a contest, guys. I'll let whoever wants to take it here.
Looking at the chart, it kind of just explained what happened in the game. We saw San Diego jump out. They scored that goal, and then Baltimore was able to keep it close. But that second half disparity really just kind of opened it up, and we didn't see anything from Baltimore in that second half. Partly because San Diego has shown defensively that they're just able to decide, hey, we're not going to concede goals this half.
That early first half sort of stumble by the Blast really led to their downfall, because they controlled the game so well against Utica, and they just weren't able to do that against the Sockers. And once they were behind in that game, it was frankly all over from there.
You can't chase. You can't chase against the Sockers. They're just too good.
Yeah.
Full marks to San Diego. Obviously, they played great this weekend. It has to be said. I'll say it. There's something to be said for being able to play in your home arena, on your home floor. The bounces, the dimensions. You're comfortable there. The crowd's behind you. So it was going to be tough for any team going up against San Diego this weekend for sure. I mean, and the Sockers, let's be honest, guys, they looked really, really good. Let's take it into the final then. We've got the matchup that, it's in the stands yesterday for the Chihuahua Wave game. There was obviously a lot of people who were pulling for the Wave to pull an upset, to get a different team in there for the final. It didn't happen. So we've got San Diego, Chihuahua. Guys, these were the two heavyweights all season long. Like they were the most consistent teams by far. So let's set it up first. Game 1. Chihuahua at San Diego, Sunday, April 13th, 8:05 Eastern kickoff. Then games 2 and 3 back in Chihuahua at Corner Sport. Sunday, April 20th for game 2. And then, of course, if they have to play any extra games after that, if the series is tied 1-1 apiece.
Not ideal for the Sockers for sure. It's I think all the pressure in the world is on them on that game 1, right? They have to win that home game.
To win to have any chance.
It's exactly. So tons of pressure on the Sockers, and now Chihuahua has that sort of mental hurdle pass that they've won a game on that blue turf, right? So it's going to be a defensive battle for sure, right? They're going to, the Sockers are going to try to lock them down, but like Joseph, I'm sure you're about to say this too. Chihuahua's not going to fear any shot, right? So they're still going to shoot from everywhere. And, if some of those chances go in, right, it's going to make for an interesting battle, at Front Wave.
No, absolutely. I think if they don't win, they really don't have a chance in that second game. At least to get 2 wins would be ridiculous. Not seen since last season with Milwaukee Monterey. So not impossible, right? But yeah, I do think that as we watch that game, those 2 games at Front Wave earlier this season are going to provide the blueprint. And I think especially this week, we'll talk a little bit later on St. Louis Chihuahua, but the way that St. Louis approached the Chihuahua game, for me, that was really the blueprint of how you shut down the Savage. And I don't think that the ambush were quite as, decisive enough in those attacking moments, but the Sockers have shown that they can be. The Sockers are so confident in front of goal. They're going to take a half chance and, absolutely put it away on you. And so if the Sockers are not converting, or if the Savage are not converting on some of those shots from distance, or if they can't find those back post tap-ins that they love, I think the Sockers will really have a clean edge at home.
They went toe-to-toe with the Savage at Corner Sport. as well.
Mhm.
They lost 11-9 in that contest. But yeah, I mean, the Ambush were up 7-6 in the third quarter. They were up 9-7 in the fourth quarter. So you've got to look at those games where the Ambush were pushed at, where the Savage were pushed at home, guys, to see what teams did right at Corner Sport Arena. Obviously, now listen, the Soccers obviously know. They know what they have to do. It's just a question of them actually being able to pull it off.
I was just gonna say one more thing, right? I love your point. I hope the Soccers watch those games for the blueprint, and I know Chihuahua will as well, to try to see what they could improve on. Discipline too in these games. This is Ali Frazier. This is Ovechkin Crosby. This is, Brooklyn Dodgers versus New York Yankees, right? Like, the two teams don't like each other, but they have to maintain their cool. There's been red cards in this series, prominent players too on both sides getting these red cards. They have to keep their cool if they have a chance winning Ron Newman's Cup.
100%. Anything else to add, Joseph, before we head into the next segment here, or have you said it all?
I think so. I really am excited, and I got the chance to talk to Coach Martinez a couple times this weekend. Unbelievable generosity from the guy to just drop everything to talk to me. So, but his insight was really cool, and he did give me another great quote where he was talking about the team's mentality, and that he tells them that, if the badge on the front is shining, so too will the name on the back.
I saw that one. I like
Good
that
stuff.
one.
Great comment.
And shouts to Tony in San Diego too for some live translations, those post-game interviews. Those were really,
Fantastic.
really cool and really insightful for someone like me.
Absolutely. And me, whose French is better than his Spanish, but with the Latin base, I can get by sometimes, right? So, dos cerveza por favor is my best. That's
more than I know.
When I'm in Mexico, so be it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to recap what went down in the quarterfinal games, or MASL Monday. Coming back in just a second. Welcome back to MASL Monday, everybody. Alex Bashivansky, producer Phil Levanko, and our good friend Joseph Reina, as we get into the final segment here, recapping all the quarterfinal games that led into, of course, Sunday's semifinals. Some real good games, guys, and we've got to touch on all of these here because let's start with the Chihuahua St. Louis one, which to me, misleading final score 5-1 if you didn't watch the game, but this thing was tied 1-1 late into the fourth. And again, Joseph, I think you're the one who touched on the blueprint about playing the Savage, that St. Louis, they played them close on a couple games this year now. It was unfortunate what happened. I will say, as I throw to you guys here, Paulo Nascimento, unbelievable performance in goal for the Ambush. Like, some of the saves he made were just off the charts good. He's the reason why this game was 1-1 late in the fourth. But Phil, whoever wants to take it here.
I was just going to say, that's why it's so unfortunate sort of how that second goal went in, right? But that's the kind of pressure Chihuahua puts you under too, as well. For me, it was still close, man. It was 2-1. I was questioning sort of some of the sixth attacker stuff that St. Louis did towards the end of the game, and then it felt like sort of heads dropped after that. But a great sort of 3.5 quarters from the Ambush, and then sort of that end with leaving the sixth attacker in before that third goal. I think sort of sealed their fate.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought they had such a good performance. I really rated them going into the playoffs. I thought they had a great end of the season, and I thought they were playing some really good indoor soccer. And that, like I said before, that was the blueprint. That was absolutely the blueprint. They followed it to perfection, and I think they got unlucky, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, especially in indoor soccer.
Yeah.
Well, before we close out St. Louis for the season, we've got to say, obviously, congratulations. It was a heck of a run by the Ambush down the stretch. One of the hottest teams in the league down the stretch to get into the playoffs. Of course, that one of the best duels of the year between them and Tacoma, the drama going down to the last game of the regular season between Tacoma and San Diego. So let's just say that fantastic job by St. Louis. It'll be interesting to see what the roster looks like next year, because they've got a real good foundation to build on here, guys. San Diego taking down Empire 4-2. Whoever wants to take this one, go for it. But listen, it was, Joseph, you go ahead with this one. But, Empire, again, plays them tight, just cannot get over that San Diego hump.
I think for me, being in that arena, watching them try the same thing over and over and over again, I'm not completely like of the opinion that that system does not work. I think it clearly does. The fact that they got to this point shows that it does. But
Joseph, for
there
anyone who
just
hasn't
wasn't.
watched, for anyone who
Mhm.
hasn't seen, explain the system really quickly that you're
Yeah, so
talking about.
it's just
Yeah,
using the goalkeeper as what I like to call the pseudo sixth attacker, where they have him joining. He's always on that right wing, and sometimes even almost like a target. He's so
yeah,
far up, but it works at times. But when it's not working, they just don't seem like they have a plan B. And
right.
against the Sockers, that was absolutely the case. They just like there's no way to elevate that, like you're not going to go down to 5 players once you're at 6. Like that's what we have the sixth attacker for. You can't bring on a
Yeah.
seventh. So I think that they got to develop some sort of other plan, because once they hit that wall where it's like, hey, this is not working, there just wasn't a backup plan.
Yeah. Phil?
I think, Empire season, they're going in the right direction for sure under Obasi.
sure.
He's one of the favorites to win Coach of the Year. And he truly revolutionized the sport this year, right? This is kind of one of the big talking points of the whole season, right? And we had him on early in
100%.
the year to kind of talk about it too. The whole thing revolves around, they got to figure out how to beat San Diego now. I mean, that's, it's been too long at this point. And, for them to sort of be considered as one of the top tiers, the favorites, all that sort of stuff, you got to beat the Sockers.
Can we just say, though, again, this is unfortunately part of the problem with the imbalance in the schedule. They had to face the Sockers 5 times in the regular season, and then the 6th time, of course, that one game they played in the postseason. So yeah, we can sit there and whine and say, oh, imbalance and stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're absolutely right. They have got to figure out a way to get over the hump and beat San Diego. Unfortunate schedule for them. But if you want to, be the best, you got to beat the best. So yeah, going forward. Okay, Milwaukee, KC, old school, old school rivalry between two great organizations. Milwaukee ultimately takes it 11-7. Guys, Joseph, we'll start with you on this one. What did you think?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of being in the building for all 4 games this season, the 2 in Milwaukee, the 1 in Kansas City, and now in San Diego, and getting to watch, I'm not great at math, but whatever 60 times 4 is, all of those games, it was really interesting to watch as Milwaukee got 3 of the 4 wins. It seems like there was a very consistent struggle for Kansas City, where when they got punched in the mouth, again, similar to what we were talking about with Empire, there just wasn't like they looked completely like, what's the word? Shocked. They didn't have a
Overwhelmed.
response.
Yeah.
And so it was frustrating to like see the game kind of follow that trajectory as it went on, because for the first half it was so good back and forth, but then once Milwaukee got a couple goals in a row, there just wasn't a response and they looked shell shocked. Yeah.
That was
Before
my
we get
take
to
too.
KC, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was my take too, right? That this was a tactics-free zone game. It was just a slugfest, and Milwaukee wanted it more. And one of the best players in the history of the league had 4 goals and really was like, I'm going to take this one, put it all on my shoulders, hop aboard, folks.
I do think real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do think that watching the game play out, Kansas City's press specifically was so crucial, and Milwaukee's ability to break that press opened up the game so that we saw that track meet that broke out. And we've seen that in all the games this season, but specifically in this one, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say tactics free, because it absolutely did feed into that. The Milwaukee wasn't just, lopping it long to the targets, but they were relying on being able to play through the press, and having a inconsistent press in indoor soccer is almost worse than having no press sometimes.
Yeah. And Ian Bennett, guys, 6 goals, 1 assist over 2 games, 7 points. Just unbelievable performance by my fellow Canadian, I've got to say. But great job, Ian. Guys, real quick, where does this leave KC then? I mean, they were 3rd for so much of the season, then they fell out of 3rd. Just over the last week, I believe, when Baltimore overtook them, only 3 wins over their last 10 games. You know, we talked about this last week. They kind of went into the playoffs sliding in. You don't want to go in that way, and Milwaukee took advantage of it. Where does this leave KC for next year, guys?
For me, it's all up here, right? They've got all the pieces there, right? They've got stars, they've got balance, they have depth, they have good
Great
coaching.
home crowds, great atmosphere, solid team. Yep, just like you're saying, Phil. Yep. Joseph, anything to add about KC? Or
I do think that tactically they are really sound. They are absolutely up there with the best in the league. I just don't know how they overcome that hurdle. You know, this is last year they were able to, and they managed to get to the finals. And talking to Coach Stokett, he was absolutely certain the goal this year was to win every single game and make it back to the finals. And for that to not happen, I know will be a really big problem within that organization, and they're going to look at that and try to get to the bottom of what happened and come back next year ready to make sure that it does.
Tough pill to swallow. And then finally, guys, Baltimore taking down Utica 6-2. As mentioned, Phil and I with egg on our faces, and that one we both called Utica. And I was thinking about that as well afterwards. I was like, I'm not actually sure why, as much as I love the Utica team, but I mean, Baltimore, I think, won 3 of 4 this season against Utica during the regular season. Just I had a feeling about Utica. I was dead wrong. I fully admit it. In this contest, guys, they're a different team without Kelvin. I mean that's Captain Obvious here, obviously. But man, like it was just if Kelvin's in the lineup, it's an entirely different makeup of that team. The way that they play. Go Phil.
I'm going to push a little bit and say I don't think Utica played particularly well in the game against Baltimore. A lot of turnovers, a lot of missed. There are a lot of wide open goals because of missed assignments and not passing your man off, things like that. I really want to say I think Coach Bascom of the Blast had a defensive masterclass that Utica just didn't handle, didn't respond to, didn't change. And then when they finally got through, Julian Rodriguez had a hell of a game. So
he did. He played great.
He was magnificent for Baltimore in that game. Chip on his shoulder, as they said on the broadcast, playing against his former team. So, I agree with the egg. I thought Utica would play a heck of a lot better than what they did. They just kind of no-showed in that game, and they're going to have to sort of go back to the drawing board on that one. They need a leading man, to your point, right? It was Frank 2 years ago. It was Kelvin last year. They built the ship on one guy, and then when the guy's not there, right?
And not to say other guys, listen, Kelvin had 42 points in 12 games, which is just ridiculous to lead the team, obviously. Next leading scorer was DeAndrade with 35 points. He played twice as many games, right? Utica had 10-4 with Kelvin in the lineup, 3-6 without. It was just a different team. He was that good. It's sad that he didn't play, but I mean, man, oh man, they were an entirely different team with him in the lineup. They were so dangerous. But listen, kudos to Baltimore for taking the contest. Joseph, as we close things out here, comments on the game in Baltimore and the way they played?
I will say, being in the arena, I thought that it was a little bit sloppier than people potentially are giving it credit for. There were a lot of mistakes on both sides. And for me, the story of the game was that Utica just could not capitalize and punish Baltimore. And talking to, the coaches over the course of the weekend, both of them acknowledged that as well, that like making those mistakes was going to be crucial and capitalizing on them will be the difference. And I think Baltimore just did a great job of that. Yeah. And it was a similar game plan. I thought they played similarly against Utica compared to what they did against San Diego. The difference just was San Diego was able to punish them.
Yep. No, for sure. Before we close things out, guys, does Justin Stinson have a shot at MVP? I know we thought we didn't have enough time about awards, but just a quick question here, because looking at that team, I mean, to me, he should be seriously considered a front runner for sure. I mean, granted, he's got Fabian on the team as well, but then there's a big drop off in scoring after that. I look at some of the guys ahead of him in points, and they had better supporting casts around them in terms of from an offensive standpoint. I think that Justin Stinson's one of the guys who really, I mean, you talk about importance to your team. He was so important for Empire. What do you think, guys? I mean, he's definitely got to be up there as a front runner, is he not?
To me, as a finalist, I think it's between Stinson and Rios and Alex Sanchez on Milwaukee. I think those
Yep.
are the three guys. We had to have our MVP stuff. I know Joseph tweeted out his picks. I'm going to be doing the same soon. I just need to sit down and write a little bit. He's a finalist, and I would argue he was even more important to Empire than Fabian.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, I think he had a
Absolutely.
better
The way that
season.
he was playing, the way that he was playing, I thought that, Marco had his role and he was absolutely instrumental to that team, especially when you talk about like set pieces and dead balls and stuff like that. But Stinson dictated the play. And if Stinson wasn't on, I don't think Empire was on.
Yeah.
So when you look at that MVP conversation, I absolutely think he deserves to be in there. I was very torn between Jorge Rios and Alex Sanchez. For me, was probably the most impressive player this season. I'll go on record as saying I don't think there's a player with a better goal catalog than Sanchez this year. He was so
Get some
good.
beauties.
And in a similar vein, if he wasn't on, Milwaukee just wasn't really firing on all cylinders. But it's hard to vote against somebody when they hit that 50-point threshold. So I think Rios was also such a good player for Chihuahua, and to stick out on a team as talented as Chihuahua is this year, I think he's more than deserving of the MVP.
I think, okay, obviously, we talked a ton about Fabian. He's unbelievable. The way he picked up the game last season, his first year on indoor. I'm going to say, I'm a little surprised he didn't do more this year. I thought in his second year in the league, it would be like Kelvin type numbers. You know what I mean? That he was putting up this season. I was a little bit surprised. He had 41 points in 21 games. Don't get me wrong, Joseph, you're sort of shaking your head, but
I think he got figured out a little bit. I think he got figured out a little bit, at least on a very basic level where like he was no longer taking guys by surprise. And I think especially a lot more teams started to attract, he attracted attention the same way that when we talk about Frank Tayu, he might have a quiet night, but he opens up that space for other players around him to shine.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know. I think third year might be really important to see how he continues on that trajectory. Does he now start to overcome the double teams? Does he start to, be treated as a little bit more of a I don't want to say normal player, but is he not getting double teamed as much or prioritized on defense?
Well, also, let's be fair here, too. The way that Stinson stepped up this season took a lot of the load off of Fabian. So I've got to be fair about that. I mean, last season, Fabian, 47 points in 21 games. The next highest scorer on the team was Alan Perez with 22 points. And Stinson this year actually had more points than Fabian. So it's nice that he didn't have to shoulder that offensive load all by himself, right? So, but anyway, guys, we got to run here. A huge thank you to Joseph. I think we're past our bit. No, we're not past our bitterness about the fact.
No, not even close.
Not at all. I was trying to be magnanimous there, and I just can't do it. We're jealous. Yes. Joseph, go for a swim. Enjoy yourself as we shiver here back home. But
and great work this weekend, my friend.
Yeah,
like
fantastic work.
Weekend.
You deserve it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is I think twice this year, right? We had Joseph on.
Yes.
Yeah. And both times with some great stats and charts and everything. So thanks so much for joining us. Producer Phil, thank you once again. And Phil and I will be back on Monday next week to review what went down in game 1 of the Ronnies, the Newmies, whatever you want to call it, folks. The Ron Newman Cup.
The finals.
The finals, baby, starting coming up this weekend in San Diego. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.